So once we know how to declare array and how to access array elements, okay. So next we'll see how to initialize one-dimensional array. Okay. So an array can be initialized at two stages, like ordinary variable. We have seen initialization of ordinary variables such as int a is equals to 10. Similarly, array is also a variable. Okay, so it can be initialized at two stages. Okay, so one is at compile time and the second one is at a runtime. Okay, so that means we can initialize an array during the compile time. We can also initialize the array at a runtime. Okay, so at two stages we can initialize. So first we'll see compile time initialization of one-dimensional array. Like, so we can initialize array elements like ordinary variables when they are declared. Okay, so initialization means giving or assigning values when the variable is declared. That is called initialization. Similarly, array can also be initialized when they are declared. Okay, so that is called compile time initialization. So how it can be done? The general form of a one-dimensional array initialization is in this way. So first we have to mention the data type here. Okay, so then followed by array name, and within the square brackets give size of the array. That means how many number of elements. Then followed by equal to symbol, and within the curly brace, within the curly braces give the list of numbers or list of elements. Because you are going to supply more than one element, they must be enclosed in a curly braces. This is the general form of a one-dimensional array initialization. Okay, right? So example, if we look into, then I have a array variable called as num whose size is 5 and which is going to store integer numbers. Okay, so then I can assign initialize the values like this, equal to, then within the curly braces, now 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, close the curly brace, end with the semicolon. Okay, so 5 values, integer values I have initialized here, and each value must be separated with a comma. Please remember. And after the last number, there is no comma, directly close the curly brace, end with a semicolon. Okay, so this is a simple example of initializing a one-dimensional array here. Clear? Right. Now, during the initialization, if the number of values in the list is less than the number of elements, okay, that means if you supply less number of values than the size of the array, okay, so what happens in such case, whether compiler gives any error or what is happening internally, that we need to understand. Okay, so in such case what happens means only that many elements will be initialized. Whatever number of elements are you supplied, only those elements will be initialized. Then what about the remaining? The remaining elements will be set to 0 automatically by the compiler. The compiler sets the remaining elements to 0. Example, if we look into, say, I have declared an array num of size 5. That means I am supposed to supply 5 values, but here I supplied only 3 values, 10, 20 and 30. That means the number of elements supplied is less than the actual size of the array. Okay, so in this case what happens, just see here. So this is your array with 5 elements. Memory is allocated for 5 elements. Okay, and this is num of 0. How to access first memory location? Num of 0. Then second memory, num of 1. This is num of 2, num of 3, and this is num of 4. Okay, so what happens means this 10, 20, 30. 10 will be stored in the first location in num of 0. 20 will be stored in a num of 1, and 30 will be stored in a num of 2. Okay, so what about the remaining positions? There are no elements supplied here. So automatically compiler what will do is it sets the remaining elements to 0. So 0, 0 will be stored in a remaining locations. Instead of keeping empty or garbage values, then it stores 0, 0 in remaining locations. Please remember this. Okay, right? Then, for example, the opposite case. That means if the number of values supplied are more than the size of the array. So what happens in this case? Okay, so what happens? Extra elements will be discarded. Extra elements will be discarded. Okay, so but in this case, the compiler produces a warning message. Okay, so warning you can ignore. If there is an error, your program won't execute. Okay, if there is a warning, you can ignore the warning and you can execute. Okay, that means still you can run your program. That is the meaning of warning. Okay, so it is just cautioning you. Please take care of these warnings. That is how it is telling you. Okay, in the first case, it won't produce any warning, but in the second case, that means if the number of elements are more than the size. Okay, so in such case it gives the warning. What kind of warning it gives? See here, excess elements in array initializer. This is the warning you will get when you compile, but you can still ignore it. You can still run your program. Okay, example, just see here. So I have declared a array num of size 3, but I supplied 5 values here. It means more number of elements I am supplying here. Okay, so in such case what happens? For num, memory will be allocated for 3 elements like this. This is num of 0, num of 1 and num of 2. Okay, so 10 will be stored in the first location, 20 will be stored in second location and 30 will be stored in a third location. Okay, so there are no memory for remaining elements. So what the compiler will do is simply it discards these two elements, thrown out. These two elements are thrown out or simply ignored, nothing to do with these values. Only up to 30 it considers and 40, 50 will be ignored. Okay, so this is the case during initialization of one-dimensional array. Please remember. Okay, right? Similarly, at the time of one-dimensional array initialization, we can ignore the size of the array. Okay, no need to specify size of the array. So in such case, what happens? How much size the compiler allocates for this array means based on the number of elements you supplied, then the size will be initialized internally by the compiler. See here, example, I have declared an array variable num with empty square brackets. See here, I have not specified here size here. Okay, in such case, now it counts how many elements you are supplying: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay, so 6 elements I have supplied here. Then the size of this array will be internally initialized to 6 here. Okay, so to compiler it looks like num of 6. For us, we have given empty brackets here. Okay, but internally when this program is compiled, it counts the number of elements supplied and internally it takes it as num of 6. Okay, so for user convenience, this is provided. Please remember. Okay, so these are all things you need to remember when you initialize a array. Okay, so generally we take this third notation. When we initialize array, we just simply ignore size of the array. Okay. Now, with this knowledge, we'll write a program to find a sum of elements in an array. Okay, so given an array with some elements, you need to find out sum of elements in an array. Okay, where do we use this program in real time? In real time, say for example, I have stored salaries of employees. All the employees' salaries I have stored in an array. Okay, so I want to find out every month how much amount I am paying in the form of salaries to all the employees. Okay, so in such case, what I can do? That means I need to find sum of all the salaries. Sum of all the salaries I need to find out. If I add all the salaries, then I will come to know, oh, 1 crore I am paying every month. Okay, so that's the thing I want to know. Okay, so this is an example. Program for such a things. Clear? Okay, so in such applications, we'll use this kind of programs. Okay, so sum of elements in an array. right? Now see here. So start writing with me if you are ready with your notebooks. Okay, so try to start writing with me. So what is the first line to be included? Comment. Okay, so write the comment. Program to find sum of elements in an array. Okay, so this will write. Okay, so then what is the next line to be included? Include the header file. Okay, so then begin the write the main function into main. Okay, so then begin the main, open curly brace. Now here the first thing is we need to declare the variables. So sum of elements in an array, we require an array. So declare an array here. So directly I'm initializing a array here. Okay, so two ways we'll discuss this program, by initializing some values, or second way is reading values through keyboard. Okay, so first I am taking the first method, initializing. Directly I am initializing num of 4 is equal to some values I have initialized 11, 6, 9 and 4. Okay, then I need to access these elements of the array. So that means I require a loop here. Okay, so loop control variable I am declaring. Okay, so then sum I need to find out. So to store that sum, I declare another variable called as sum and initialize it to 0. Okay, so these variables I require there. Now this is variable declaration. You need to identify what are the variables I require. If you don't know, if you don't identify these variables declaration, how many variables I need, what variables I need. Okay, so then you cannot proceed with your program. This is the main crucial step in writing any C program. Based on the problem, you need to identify the type of variables, whether I require an array or an ordinary variable, an integer variable or a floating point variable. These things we should, nobody teaches you. It is your sense. By using your sense, you have to identify these things. Okay, right. Now, so first already I have initialized array. Now I have to access this elements of the array. So for that I use a for loop here. So for I is equal to 0, I should start from 0. Why? Why I should start from 0? This already we discussed in the last program, because array indexing starts from a 0. That means the first elements index element index is at a 0. So that's why I should start from 0 and I less than 4 here. Size of the array, then I plus plus. This is the for loop we'll write. Okay, so then one by one you add to the array. So what is the statement to be written here? Sum is equal to sum plus num of I. Each element of the array you go on add to the sum. That's how we'll find the sum here. Okay, so this loop repeatedly adds one by one element to the variable called as a sum, and finally the sum will be stored in the variable sum. And if you print the variable sum, you'll get sum of array elements. So instead of just printing the number, you add some statement there. Sum of array elements is equals to percentage %d double quotes close comma sum. This prints sum of the array elements. Then say return 0 and close. Okay, so this is simple program to find sum of elements in an array. So directly here we initialize the elements of the array. Now we look into the execution part of this program. What happens internally, how it calculates sum of the elements in the array. These things you should understand, because array is a new concept. Okay, so how your program accesses elements of the array, that you should understand. Okay, so now if you look into program execution, your program execution begins from main. So first main function is executed. Okay, so first the first line is executed, then it enters the main function. Okay, so then these lines will be executed. Okay, so variable initialized when this is actually when num of 4 and this memory is allocated during compile time. Please remember. Okay, so during compile time only for this num, memory is allocated like this. Okay, so this all happens, this memory allocation happens during compile time only. Okay, right? So the first element, how to access first location, num of 0, second location, num of 1, third location, num of 2, and the fourth location is num of 3. Okay, right? So that n should be lowercase in num of 3. Okay, I'll make change afterwards, right? So then directly values applied. So that's why the values will be stored. 11 will be stored here, and 6 at a second place, 9 at third place, and 4 at a fourth place. This way, the values will be stored in the array. Okay, all this happens during the compile time only. Please remember. Okay, so then, yeah, this array is created at a compile time only. Then next, the second statement is executed, and for this also actually memory is allocated during the compile time for I and sum, and sum will be initialized to 0. 0 will be stored in a sum. Okay, so then it goes to the next statement, that is enters the for loop. So in this for loop, which statement is executed first? Which section is executed first? First, the initialization part is executed. Okay, so that means I is equals to 0 is executed first. Okay, so that means in I previously garbage value is present. Okay, so now 0 will be stored in a I. Then after executing the first initialization section, then control goes to second section, that is condition testing section. Then it checks the condition 0 less than 4, 0 less than 4, it checks. So 0 less than 4, true. Okay, so when this is true, then executes the statement following this for loop. Okay, so the next statement is this statement. Sum is equal to sum plus num of I. This is executed. Okay, so what first the right hand side is calculated first. That means sum plus num of I. Okay, so what is the value present in sum? It is 0. Okay, plus what is the value in num of I value is 0, num of 0, in num of 0 what is the value? 11. So 0 plus 11 is calculated, and that will be again stored back in left hand side variable. Left hand side we have sum, so this 11 will be stored back in sum. So that's why you can see 11 stored back in a sum. Okay, so 0 is gone in sum and 11 will be stored in a sum. Okay, then the control goes to increment part. Again it goes to for loop, and exactly it goes to the increment section of the for loop. Okay, so I plus plus will be executed. So I plus plus means increment I value by 1. Then I value becomes 1. Okay, so after increment section, again control goes back to condition part. Okay, so now we test the condition 1 less than 4. Yes, 1 less than 4, true. Okay, so when it is true, again it goes to the next statement and executes this statement. Sum is equal to sum plus num of I, it executes. Okay, now see what is the current value in sum. Current value in sum is 11. Okay, plus num of 1, in num of 1 6. So 11 plus 6 will be calculated. 11 plus 6 will be calculated, and 17 will be stored back in a sum. Okay, so now sum contains the value 17. Sum contains the value 17. Okay, so in the same way, the loop repeats. Okay, so just see here. So next where the control goes back to again for loop. Okay, exactly increment section it goes I plus plus. Okay, so I value becomes 2 this time. Okay, so then again next goes to the condition part. This repeats. This repeats goes to the condition part. 2 less than 4, yes, true. So true means goes to the next statement. So again execute sum is equal to sum of num plus I. So what is current value of sum? 17 plus num of 2. In num of 2 what is the value? 9. So 17 plus 9 is calculated. Okay, see we are adding one by one element to the sum. That is what happening internally in memory. Okay, so 17 plus 9, 26 will be stored in a sum. Okay, so then control goes to for loop again, increment part, I value is incremented, I becomes now 3, then again condition is tested, 3 less than 4, yes true, then again goes to the next statement. Okay, so executes this statement, sum is equal to sum plus num of I. Okay, so what is current value of sum? 26 plus 4. So 30 will be stored back in a sum. Okay, so again the loop has not yet ended. So again goes to for loop increment section I plus plus. I becomes now 4. This time I becomes 4. Okay, so again test the condition. So 4 less than 4 this time false. So when this is false, now see here. So it comes out from the loop. It comes out from the loop means directly jumps to the next statement after the loop. Okay, so now this is the next statement following the loop. Okay, so then control directly jumps to printf statement. Okay, so then it executes printf sum of array elements. When this is executed on the screen, you can see the output as sum of array elements is equal to. Okay, so where did we store? In the variable called sum. So that's why we are printing sum, and you can see sum of array elements is equal to 30. Okay, so then goes to the next statement, return 0. Okay, so then your program ends. End of the program it reaches. That's how your program ends. Okay, so this is how internally your system calculates sum of array elements and stores into the variable called as a sum. And if you print that variable sum, you can, all these things are happening internally. You should understand. Okay, so you have written only this first statement and sum is called sum plus num of I once, but it is repeated 4 times. It is repeated 4 times. So you should understand how that loop is repeating. Okay, and what is happening internally, how the variable values are changing, I value, sum value, how it is changing after every iteration. These are called iterations. Each repetition is called iteration. Okay, so these things you should generate on the paper. On paper, you should be able to repeat the loop and change the values in the variables. Then you will understand what is happening, if there is any problem in my program logic or not. Okay, so this is first way. Directly I have shown demonstrated array initialization in this program. You can also, here what happens, if you execute this program for any number of times, always the sum of the array elements will be 30 only, because already values are initialized, fixed. Okay, now if you want to read values through keyboard, okay, so we can modify the program and you can just add a scanf function to the program. Okay, so just see here how it can be modified, because sometimes in examination directly he specifies read the values through keyboard. So then you have to read values only through keyboard using scanf function. You cannot initialize in the program. If you initialize, then examiner may strike off your program. There may be a chance. Okay, so that's why read the question properly and accordingly write the program. Okay, so how to modify the same program using scanf? Just see here. So you know this. First line to be included is comment statement. Okay, so then include the header file. Quickly now, I think you can regenerate the program. Then write the main function. Then begin the main function here. Now, see, we need to declare an array here. Just see the difference here. Okay, so array of size 50 I have declared, because when I am going to read values, I do not know how many elements I need to enter. First time I may enter 5 elements, next time I may enter 10 elements, next time I may enter 20 elements. So that's why we need to provide array of a bigger size. So that's why I have declared num of 50. Then I need to declare another variable n, which actually contains the actual number of elements in the array. Whenever you run the program, how many actual elements you want to store, that is indicated by this n, and a loop control variable I, and as usual sum is equal to 0. Okay, so this is how the array declaration changes here. Now only we declared array here. Okay, so values will read through keyboard now. So first ask the user how many elements he wants to store in the array. Okay, so 5 elements or 10 elements, you have to specify. So read the value and store in the address of n. Now n is nothing but n number of elements I am going to store in the array. This is the meaning of this. Now ask the user to enter those n numbers. Okay, so enter percentage d numbers comma n. Say for example, how many elements means 5 means, then he should get the message enter 5 numbers. Okay, so he enters 5 numbers and your program has to read one by one and store into the array. Okay, so that means use a for loop and a scanf function to read the values. So for I is equal to 0, how to write that? This should come into your mind. Whenever you are reading values into the array, then you have to use a for loop. So for I is equal to 0, I less than, now see here, I should be less than n here, not 50. Okay, because the actual number of elements are n only. So I should be less than n, then I plus plus, and write the statement scanf percentage d comma where to store address of num of I. Store the values in the num of I. Then this scanf function reads one by one number and stores into the array. Okay, now find the sum. Assume that the elements are in the array. So how to find the sum? Again you have to add one by one to the variable called sum. So that's why again you have to use a for loop here. So same for loop, for I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. Okay, so in previous program how we calculated sum, the same for loop we can use here. Okay, only thing is I should be less than n here. Okay, so how to find the sum? This is the statement, sum is equal to sum plus num of I. Okay, so then your program calculates sum of array elements by using this for loop. So once the loop completes, then now you print a sum of array elements stored in the variable called sum. Okay, so use a printf statement and print the sum value. Then say return 0 and close the program. Okay, so this is how we can modify the program to read values through the keyboard. Clear? Okay, so you should be in a position to write a program in different ways. Hope this is clear. Okay, right? I'm not going to show the execution of this. Okay, step by step execution. Only thing is we can run this program in code blocks. Okay, so then I can show you the output of this program. So start the code blocks. when you execute the program actually in C compiler, okay, so nothing, you will see only input and output, but how it calculated everything you should understand by executing the paper on program on paper. Okay, so when you execute the program and generate the logic on paper, then you will come to know what is happening internally. Okay, so what we do is sum of elements of array. Okay, so sum underscore array, I'll say my program name is. Okay, now this is the program. Then build the program. I'm building the program. So there is an error. See here in this. So what is the error means? These double quotes actually I copied from PPT, no? So there it will have different kind of double quotes. So again we need to type these double quotes here. Okay, just you can see these double quotes when you copy from notepad or word. Okay, so generally these double quotes gives problem in the program. So better you type, modify these double quotes again. Okay, all right, so save the program again and again build the program. Okay, so what is happening here? Scanf, I have not closed this scanf, close this. So again build the program. Like this you should identify the errors in the program and correct them, save them, again you need to compile. Okay, so every time go on compile, correct the programs, then you will come to know what kind of mistakes you are committing in the program. You should be able to identify those errors also, then only you can write a good program. Okay, right now there are no errors. Now I am running the program. See, enter how many elements in array. Okay, so I enter 5. Enter 5 numbers. See, if I enter 10 there, I'll get a message, enter 10 numbers. Okay, so this is how the message should be displayed. Then if I want the message to be displayed in that way, how to write printf statement. Okay, so you should understand constructing a printf in such a way. Okay, so then you should write printf percentage d numbers, comma, in this percentage d place value should be printed from this variable n. That is how you should think and you should construct the printf statement. Okay, so then on the screen you will get enter 5 numbers. Now you enter 5 numbers. Okay, so I enter 5 numbers, say for example 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so now you can see sum of array elements is equal to 15. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. The value is 15. 15 displayed on the screen. Okay. Right. So 141 members are there. Let me download the attendance. We'll continue the class. Physics class also. I am going to take physics class. And we'll continue the class up to 1 o'clock. Okay. So I'll leave you at 1. 12 to 1 we'll continue. If I take break again, so it is taking a long time for logging and sharing the screen. Okay, so better we'll continue. Please be there. Okay. Right. Scanf key bracket close cheyali. Yeah, that's what the error. Okay, so in PPT I need to close this. Yes, for scanf I need to close this bracket. Right. Very good. Thank you. Okay, right? So this is declaring an array, initialization of array, and using the array in the program and solving different problems related to array. What kind of problems we solved? Programs we have written: finding maximum element and minimum element in an array, and finding sum of elements in an array. Okay, there is another kind of program, that is arranging the numbers in sorting order. Okay, so if you store some numbers in the array, you need to arrange the numbers in a ascending order or a descending order. That is called sorting, and you will be learning this in the last chapter. Okay, so there I'll tell you, but meanwhile you practice these programs and solve some other programs related to this average of, for example, I have stored all the students marks in an array. Now I want to find out what is the average mark of my class. Then what I have to do, I have to find sum of all marks, then divided by number of students, then I'll get average mark of the class. Okay, so these are different uh, applications where we can use this one dimensional array. Okay, right? So, yeah, any messages? Right. This is the program. Yeah, before this,